G'day guys, back with the Outer Circle. In this episode of Getting Started in the Horus Heresy, it is the Imperial Fist Part 3. So on previous episodes, people have asked if we can put the characters themselves up on screen when we talk about them, and if we can put the rules up on screen when we talk about them. That is pushing the limits of copyright a bit too far. If I put the rules up for every single character and I don't just talk about them, I'm not really being transformative per se. It's one thing to discuss them and have, say, a single set of rules up, for example, spend an hour talking about it. It's another thing, however, to just say, here's the exact rules for this unit. Yeah, they are what you see, moving on. Because these Part 3 videos are designed to be kept quite short and sharp. On top of that, 90% of the bloody characters in the Horus Heresy, they are only available on paper. They don't have physical models. And so trying to put a physical model up on screen means I either need to create one myself, don't have the time and money for that, or I have to go and get someone else's. And that's a problem because then other copyright things come into play. So that's why I don't do it. It's just easier to show the Primarch off for the Legion and leave it at that. So I know that can be a bit confusing for people, but that is the why of why that happens. Anyway, let's move into the actual episode. So in these Part 3s, we look at the special characters and the Primarchs of the Legion. Why is it kept separate? Well, again, to reiterate, it is because in the first episode, we talk about, hey, this is the models you can use to make stuff to build a Legion on the tabletop. In the second part, we talk about, hey, here's how those rules actually apply to your basic units and traits. The Part 3 is your special characters. The Part 4, we're going to do things like how we actually make a list for each Legion. So that is coming. Now, Lexus Pollux is where we're going to start with characters for this episode. So Pollux was quite good in Heresy 1.0, and he's not bad in Heresy 2. His big thing is that he is a very tanky character. Having a Vigil Pattern Storm Shield, Solarite Power Gauntlet means he is really good in challenges because he can most likely survive thanks to his 3+ invulnerable save, and when he hits back he can kill stuff that's up to toughness 5 or toughness 4 battle hardened. Very, very good. He has Deep Strike, has Void Commander, and he can give Deep Strike to a unit that he joins in reserve, which is quite similar to, I think it's the Mistos console. It's one of those new consoles. Which, yep, it's something. Now, is he the sort of character that you're like, oh, well, I must take him in any list? No, not particularly. I think he's just a solid middle-of-the-road character. Maybe a little bit expensive for what he offers, but I've got no issue with him at all. And I think really, as far as building a character goes for your Legion, he is quite solid, middle-of-the-road character. Moving on, we get to Fafnir Ran. Now, Fafnir Ran is a one-trick pony, and that trick is Stone Gauntlet. He himself is designed to buff the units that you're going to use in that Rite of War, and that Rite of War is a very strong Rite of War. Because all of his bonuses revolve around breaches and phalanx warders, that's the force you're going to take him with. And we see that in his stat line, because you're basically paying 55 points more than a Praetor, but you're getting so much more for it. You're getting Hammer of Wrath, you're getting the Shield Master, so -1 to the strength of enemy attacks if you're using your boarding shield, which time and a place. You've got Executioner's Tax, which is one of those screw you over type rules where when the enemy charges you, they're going to drop enemy stats. Kind of like a reverse Furious Charge, I guess you could look at it as. Good for him, I guess. He has obviously got Power Axes type thing, Master Crafted, because, ooh, so much better. And really, you're not taking him because he's the kind of character like Pollux who you can throw into a challenge and you know he's going to survive and he's going to win. No, he'll do alright in challenges, but he'll probably lose to tooled up Praetors with Paragon Blades because he's not Eternal Warrior or anything. Where he excels is making your army better. So if you take Breaches or Phalanx Warders, for example, he'll give them the Unbroken Wall as his Warlord trade. So +1 weapon skill on any turn they charged, and you get an extra reaction in your opponent's assault phase, so it helps them out. Because Phalanx Warders get +1 weapon skill when they are charged, so pretty much you're always going to be fighting at weapon skill 5. The only downside is you don't have a huge number of attacks on Phalanx Warders, and people will use that as justification to say, well, therefore they're not really that strong. It's like, no, if you have a 4+ rerollable invulnerable save and the ability to fight in weapon skill 5, at least in round 1, you've only got to really get through that first round of combat, and there is a good chance you might make the enemy run because of the way morale and leadership works in this edition. Imperial Fists are a great legion because they have all the tools. They have excellent shooting, and they have solid close combat potential. They've got lots of scoring units, decent morale. They've got all the things you want to see in a legion. And of course, Fafnir Ran is all about buffing and giving bonuses on that kind of thing. Then we move on to Sigismund. Sigismund is the strongest character in Horus Heresy that's not a Primarch currently. It's really that simple. So the reason he's so good is he's got downsides. Initiative 4, okay, not that great. He's going to be striking last a bit of the time. There are people who can cause more wounds than him in close combat. So, for example, people with, say, I don't know, a crazy tooled up Raven Guard, Chapter Master with Legion Master with Twin Lightning Claws or, Raven's Talons. Lucius the Eternal can definitely cause more wounds in challenge. Causewayne is up there for being able to cause equal, if not greater damage. The difference is, though, is none of them are Eternal Warrior. And Sigismund is. And Sigismund is going to cause instant death with his attacks in a challenge, and he's also going to be forcing you to reroll armor saves against those attacks, which means you probably aren't going to survive them. He is weapon skill 7. That's Primarch weapon skill. People with weapon skill 6 are hitting him on 5s. People with weapon skill 3 are basically just shouldn't participate in the combat. So, really, really good. If he is causing instant death and making you reroll your armor saves, you're going to die in the challenge. It doesn't matter whether you're Sevatar, doesn't matter whether you're Causewayne, doesn't matter whether you're Khan the Bloody, doesn't matter whether you're Lucius, doesn't matter whether you're Eidolon. All these characters that are known as amazingly good close combat challenges in the Horus Heresy will all die against Sigismund. Because he doesn't have to do the most damage. He's only got to outlast his enemy. An Eternal Warrior means you're going to cause 1 or 2 wounds to him after invulnerable saves, and he's going to get... As long as he gets 1 wound through, you're done. And because you're re-rolling your invulnerable save, you're done. Lucius is not strong enough to do it. Eidolon is not strong enough to do it. Eidolon's big trick is, hey, look how quickly I can hit you with this hammer. That hammer is going to bounce off him. Sigismund is terrifying. But that's really where it begins and ends with him. He is not there to buff your army. He is not there to make you better. He is there entirely as an object that you point at the enemy and unleash on them, and he kills what he touches. And he's very good at that job, and only that job. Then, of course, the man of the hour, Rogel Dawn. So, Rogel Dawn is midpoint on points for Primarchs, 435. Weapon skill 8, which is better than some. Obviously worse than a couple of others, but Rogel Dawn is one of those Primarchs who I never saw him as being good in close combat. He was always the Castellan. He's the sort of Primarch that should buff your army more. And this is sort of his 3rd iteration, because he had 2 iterations in Heresy 1.0. They decided he needed a buff, so they changed him a little bit, made him stronger. Well, now they made him stronger again with this edition. And you got Primarchs like Korax, who would lose to him in a fight, and Korax shouldn't on any planet primarily, I was going to say, or predominantly, melee-oriented Primarch like Korax shouldn't be losing to fucking Rogel Dawn. But anyway, I digress. Rogel Dawn, weapon skill 8, Furious Charge 2, which is pretty interesting because that means he's going to be striking with incredibly high strength on the charge. I'm thinking, strength 10 here. And thanks to Reaping Blow, plus his base number of attacks, he's probably going to kill, like, 5 models, 6 models a turn. Like Terminators, multi-wound models, Galvorback, you name it. Like, he's an excellent Galvorback killer. He would actually be surprisingly good at killing Custodes, too, if they remain at toughness 5. So, quite good. His armor is still the same, essentially, as it was in the first edition of Horus Heresy. It's a 2+, 4+, so 4+ invulnerable save, like an Iron Halo. But the gimmick of the armor is you can never wound him on better than a 4+. So you can shoot him with a las cannon in the face, you still need 4s to wound him, which is an insanely good special rule. Apparently it's because it has either a piece of or is made of the same material as the Emperor's own armor. Wow, yeah. The Emperor must really like Dawn because he gave him that, and meanwhile, like, Angron in Heresy 1.0 got like 3+ armor save. Yeah, there's no favoritism there. It's funny things like that in the fluff that make you think, yeah, I can really see why some of those traitor Primarchs felt a bit more bitter than others. Yeah, he's really good. While he's alive, he's going to add higher leadership to your army. He's going to grant all of your characters his leadership, so leadership 10. Which is really, really good because it means you maybe don't necessarily have to start taking Vexilias and banners everywhere in your army and taking Legion Heralds and things like that for fearless bubbles and auras because you're going to be well looked after. Again, Imperial Fists get all the tools. That should just be the motto. Imperial Fists gets all the tools. And because of those buffs and the fact that he is able to, on the charge, do a ton of damage, he is one of those Primarchs who is really good to take. It's just that simple. Is he the best to take? No. I still think that the Primarchs like Sanguinius, Corax, to a lesser degree Curzon, Mortarion, those Primarchs that have abilities to move very quickly around the battlefield, are probably the best to take because they're the ones that are most likely to actually get their points back in a game. Because the downside of Primarchs is they're so bloody expensive, and if someone else has a Primarch, the two end up dueling in the middle of the table, and that's it. That's their game done. They will spend the entire game in that duel. One of them will die, but it's going to take, on average, 3 turns for it to happen. Like 3 full turns for it to happen. And because of that, you know, even Horus isn't taking down Corax in 2 turns. He'll definitely mess the guy up. But there's going to be some damage traded both ways. I use Corax as sort of the measuring bar for what is a pretty weak Primarch. They just can't get that one right. And because of that, I will tend to lean towards and favour those Primarchs. But obviously, Dawn having a pretty good army-wide ability in that Leadership 10 buff, he gets more utility because at least even if he isn't earning his points back killing, he's keeping your models on the table, and that's very important. Last little thing with Rogal Dawn is he has shooting, but we'll ignore that. It's his aircraft. He can take the Atos Dios, which is a customized, modified, pimped out, whatever, Thunderhawk. It's okay, but because it counts towards your Lord of War limit, if you take Thunderhawk and you take Dawn combined, you're well over 1,200 points. I have to do the maths, but you're somewhere around 1,250 points. At that kind of expense, you're playing, 5,000 point games in order to legally take it? If you're playing that points limit anyway, then taking a Thunderhawk along is the least of your issues because there's going to be some crazy stuff on both sides of the battlefield at that point. Like super heavy squadrons and titans. That kind of level of insanity happening on the board. Think how many dreadnoughts in a 5,000 point Fury of the Ancients list. Jesus, Dawn. But yeah. Anyway, that's it for the Imperial Fists. I think overall, really good range of characters. You've got the middleman, Pollux. You have the Phalanx Water Buffer in the case of Fafnir Ran. You have the Ultimate Challenger in Sigismund. And you have a very solid Primarch in the form of Rogal Dawn. All in all, the Imperial Fists, they just have all the tools. Anyway, back to the Outer Circle. Thank you all for watching this episode. And the next one coming up will be on the Blood Angels. because we're doing all loyalists in order this time out, and then we're going to do all traitors in order. See you next time.